You know that feeling, right? That electric, undeniable moment when you meet someone and everything just clicks. It feels like magic, maybe even fate. But what if it's something else entirely? What if that instant connection is actually a complex biological signal your body is sending and receiving, completely beneath your conscious control? All right, let's get into the science of what really happens when we fall in love.
We've all heard about it, and I bet a lot of you have actually felt it. That powerful, immediate sense of chemistry. It's the kind of thing we write stories and songs about. But is it just a feeling, all in our heads, or is there something more tangible going on here?
Well, it turns out science does have an answer, and it's a lot deeper and, frankly, a lot more surprising than you might expect. It has less to do with what you see and everything to do with what you and your body are actually feeling.
So let's start with that initial click. We tend to think attraction is all about the obvious signals we send each other. A warm smile, a lingering glance, the right kind of body language. But the research? It tells a very, very different story.
Okay, check this out. A fascinating study from Leiden University discovered something pretty remarkable. Researchers set up blind dates, and they monitored everyone's physiology. They found that the conscious signals we all focus on, the smiling, the eye contact, they didn't predict mutual attraction at all. Zero. Instead, the real predictor was totally invisible. It was physiological synchrony. When one person's heart rate sped up, so did their dates. Their skin conductance, which is basically just a measure of nervous system arousal, it matched perfectly. That click is your body's literally getting on the same wavelength. Wild, right?
All right, so our bodies are syncing up. That's cool. But what about our personalities, our beliefs? This brings us to one of the most famous, and it turns out, most incorrect myths in all of romance.
We all know the saying. The idea that we seek out partners who are totally different from us, who complete us, is basically the plot of every other romantic comedy. But when you actually look at the data, this old saying just completely falls apart.
So a massive study published in Nature Human Behavior looked at over 130 traits across millions of couples. The results were just overwhelming. For at least 82% of all the traits they measured, we're talking everything from political views and education to whether you smoke, partners were way more likely to be similar than different. So the takeaway is pretty clear. We don't really want our opposites. We want a mirror.
So we're attracted to people who are like us, and our bodies physically sync up when we feel that click. But what happens next? What is going on in our brains when that initial attraction starts to get really intense? That early stage, passionate love. Well, when people who are madly in love see a picture of their partner, their brains light up like a pinball machine. Specifically, these areas, the VTA, the nucleus accumbens, the caudate, and the insula, they just go into overdrive. And this is the key point. This isn't just any old part of the brain. This is the mesolimbic system. It's the brain's core reward and motivation pathway. A super-activated reward system, obsessive thoughts, intense craving. If that sounds familiar, it definitely should. Because neurologically, the feeling of falling in love looks shockingly similar to something else entirely.
For centuries, poets and philosophers have called love sickness a type of madness. And you know what? Modern neuroscience suggests they weren't that far off. That early phase of romantic love shares a whole lot of hallmark traits with behavioral addiction. And when you compare the symptoms side by side, the connection becomes undeniable. On one side, you have the clinical criteria for substance use disorder from the DSM-5. On the other, the totally normal feelings of early romantic love. And the parallels are just startling. That intense craving for the person. A growing tolerance, where you need more and more time with them to get that same euphoric rush. And of course, withdrawal. That awful feeling of anxiety and despair when they're gone.
And it's not just the behaviors that overlap. Like we just saw, the underlying brain circuitry is the same. Intense romantic love and substance addiction both trigger a massive dopamine release in the exact same reward pathways. It is quite literally a natural high.
So, if love and addiction start in the same neurological place, why do they end up on such wildly different paths? One builds connection and stability, while the other can lead to total ruin. So what causes love to make this pro-social pivot?
This is really the central mystery, isn't it? Both start with this intense, dopamine-fueled pursuit of a reward. But where addiction spirals into a destructive loop, healthy love somehow matures into a calm, stable, and deeply pro-social bond. So what's the secret ingredient here? What is the biological switch that steers the love train onto the tracks of healthy attachment instead of addiction?
The answer seems to be a really powerful little neuropeptide called oxytocin. See, whilst dopamine drives that initial wanting and craving in both love and addiction, oxytocin is what fosters connection. It's the neurochemical of trust, of safety, of social bonding. While substance abuse can actually damage the brain's oxytocin system, healthy relationships flood the brain with it. And that's what transforms that initial addictive rush into a lasting, secure attachment.
Now, understanding this biological pivot from dopamine to oxytocin isn't just a fun science fact. It's incredibly practical. It gives us a clue as to how we can actually cultivate deeper connections in our own lives, especially in a world that feels like it's designed to pull us apart.
Take this simple but incredibly powerful exercise. It was used in Arthur Aaron's famous intimacy studies. 4 minutes of uninterrupted eye contact. I know it can feel super awkward at first, but the research shows it's basically a direct hack into our bonding system. It boosts oxytocin, it slows our breathing, and it fosters this profound sense of being seen, reconnecting us on that deep physiological level we talked about right at the beginning.
And this is why this stuff matters so much right now. We live in an age of what psychologists actually call phubbing, phone snubbing. We give our partners and our friends our partial attention while our minds are half lost somewhere in the digital world. We've replaced this ancient oxytocin-releasing ritual of direct eye contact with the glow of a screen.
So I'll just leave you with this question to think about. The science shows us that connection is built in these quiet, wordless, physiologically resonant moments. In a world that is constantly screaming for our attention, what are we losing when we forget to simply stop, turn to each other, and really, truly look?